You ever look back at a single moment and wonder, was that the second everything fell apart? Or had it already been unraveling long before I even noticed? I told myself I was just walking to the kitchen for a glass of water, that it was harmless. But the moment I stopped in that hallway and saw the blue light glowing under my stepson's door, I knew something was about to change. And I didn't stop it. It was just past 2 o'clock in the morning. The house was quiet.
Too quiet.
Except for the low hum coming from under Dylan's bedroom door. My bare feet touched the cold floor as I moved through the dark hallway, still holding an empty glass I hadn't even used. Just a restless night. Or at least that's what I thought. My husband Tom was fast asleep at the other end of the hall.
Safe.
Peaceful. I should have turned around. I should have gone back, climbed into bed, curled up beside him, and closed my eyes. But I didn't. I stood there, staring at that faint blue light, and something inside me stirred, a feeling I didn't want to name. I'm Rachel. I'm 39. Tom and I have been married for 8 years. He's steady, generous, and exactly the kind of man you build a life with. He made me believe love could be safe again after my first marriage crumbled. I wasn't looking to be anyone's stepmother, but Dylan, his son, was grown. He was 20 when I met him. Quiet and awkward, always lost in his laptop or game controller. He moved out after college, started working for a startup in Seattle. And I thought that chapter's closed. But life is strange. 6 months ago, the company folded, and Dylan came back. Now 26, out of work, living in our guest room. Tom was thrilled. His son was home, and he couldn't stop bragging about how proud he was. I smiled through it all, but I noticed the change. Dylan wasn't the same.
He was confident now.
Taller. Sharper. And when he looked at me, it wasn't boyish or shy anymore. It lingered. His glances lasted too long. His comments carried weight. That night, standing outside his door, I leaned just slightly toward the light. Inside, Dylan was on his bed, eyes locked on a glowing laptop screen. The blue glow danced across his face. And then I saw it. I froze. It was a video of me and Tom. A private moment, one never meant for anyone else to see. My heart stopped. I didn't understand. How did he get it? How long had he been watching? I should have rushed in, screamed, demanded answers. But I didn't. I stood there like a ghost, shaking, staring. And worse, a small, terrifying part of me didn't just feel fear. It felt seen. I backed away slowly. The hallway stretched longer than I remembered. I slipped back into bed beside Tom, who never stirred, but I lay awake, trembling, my mind spinning. Disgust and confusion waged inside me, along with something darker.
Curiosity.
Flattery. The next few days were a blur. I avoided Dylan. I barely spoke to Tom. But Dylan was calm, collected. Every time he passed me in the hallway, his arm brushed mine just enough to feel deliberate. At breakfast, he smiled like he knew a secret I couldn't stop thinking about. Why did I feel a thrill? Then came the business trip. Tom packed his bags, kissed my cheek, and joked, "Don't let the kid eat all the frozen pizza." I laughed, but the second the door shut behind him, the house felt too still, too charged. I was wiping down the counters again when Dylan appeared in the doorway. "We need to talk," he said, voice low and steady. I turned slowly. "About what?" He stepped closer. "I know you saw." My throat tightened. "What did I see?" I whispered. His breath was warm against my cheek. "You. Beautiful. Real." My skin burned with shame. But I didn't step back. I didn't correct him. I couldn't. After that, it was like I was living in two realities. One with Tom, polite and normal. The other with Dylan, tense and electric. He pushed boundaries. Small touches. Lingering stares. And I let him. My robe stayed open longer. I wore silkier pajamas. I told myself I was in control, but I wasn't. Dylan was always one move ahead. Then the storm came. Rain slammed against the windows. The power blinked out. I stood in the kitchen, candles flickering, pretending I wasn't affected. Then I heard his voice. "It's just a storm," he said behind me, his chest pressed against my back. His hands slid to my waist. My breath caught. "Stop," I whispered, but it was too soft. "Make me," he murmured into my ear. Lightning lit the room just as our lips met.
Hot.
Reckless. Dangerous. I knew I should have stopped it, but I didn't. The next day, the lights were back on. Life pretended to go back to normal. But it wasn't. Not for me. Not for Dylan. And definitely not for Tom, who returned home completely unaware. 3 nights later, there was a knock on my door. I knew who it was. I opened it anyway. Dylan stood there, bare-chested, smug.
"We need to talk," he said again.
And I followed him to the basement. I tried. I said it couldn't happen again. I reminded him I was married. But when he touched me, my body betrayed me. Weeks blurred into moments. A touch under the table. A kiss in the laundry room. A stolen second in the hallway. And then silence. Until the morning I was late. 2 weeks. I stared at the pregnancy test on the bathroom counter, like it was a loaded gun. Positive. I shoved the test into Dylan's hands. His eyes lit up. "This is perfect," he said. "We can stop pretending." "You think I'd leave Tom for you?" I snapped. "You already have," he replied, cold. He gave me 3 days to tell Tom, or he would. That night, I packed a bag, left my wedding ring on the counter with a note, and drove until the city lights disappeared. I checked into a cheap motel and cried until I couldn't breathe. The next morning there was a knock.
"Dylan."
And behind him, Tom. Tom's face was pale, devastated. "How long?" he asked. Dylan stepped forward. "She's pregnant. It's mine." I watched my husband shatter. Dylan laughed like it was all a game. I saw him for what he truly was. Not a lost boy, but a man who manipulated every piece on the board.
He wanted me. And he won.
But I wasn't his prize. I walked out again. I found a job at a bookstore, rented a tiny apartment, tried to forget. At 7 months pregnant, I was alone. But free. One rainy afternoon, Dylan found me again. "You look good pregnant," he said, as if that would fix everything. "There's no us," I said, placing a hand over my stomach. "Leave." He muttered something about a DNA test and stormed off. When labor came, I took a taxi to the hospital alone and gave birth to a baby girl, Lily. My light in the chaos. Dylan tried to demand rights. I threatened court. With help, I vanished. New name. New city. Justice. I wrote one last letter to Tom. I told him Lily might be his. She might not. But she'd be raised with love, with honesty, and with better choices than I made. This story isn't just mine. It's a reminder. Boundaries matter. Choices matter. We don't always get do-overs. But we do get to choose what comes next. If this story made your heart race or your soul ache, hit subscribe. We share raw stories here because sometimes the truth is messier than fiction.